Joseph Kasavubu, alternatively Joseph Kasavubu, c. 1915–24 March 1969, was a Congolese politician who served as the first president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Republic of the Congo until 1964, from 1960 until 1965. A member of the Congo ethnic group, Kasavubu became the leader of the Alliance de Bakongo, Abako, party in the 1950s and soon became a leading proponent of Congo's independence from Belgian colonial rule. He then became the country's first president in a coalition with Patrice Lumumba as prime minister. Less than a week after the country's independence in 1960, their government was confronted by the Congo crisis, a series of secession movements and rebellions. During this time, Kasavubu, a centrist, clashed with the leftist Lumumba when the latter ordered assistance from the Soviet Union, leading to a political deadlock. Kasavubu then dissolved Lumumba's government, accusing it of having communist sympathies. Following Lumumba's execution in 1961, Kasavubu presided over a series of weak governments while confronting subsequent rebellions by Lumumba supporters. In 1965, he was overthrown in another coup by Joseph Désiré Mobutu and died 4 years later. Joseph Kasavubu was born in the village of Kuma-Dizi in the Mayombe district in the Bakongo, in the west of the Belgian Congo. Different sources list his year of birth as 1910, 1913, 1915, or 1917, though 1915 is the most probable date. He was the eighth of 9 children in a family of the Mayombe people, an ethnic group that is a subset of the Congo people. His father was a successful farmer who, as an independent entrepreneur, traded with street merchants in Cabinda and built his house at the outskirts of the village. This earned him the animosity of the villagers, and in an attempt to assuage their hostility he volunteered to undergo a poison test with a substance extracted from a Kasa tree. The word Kasa was appended onto his name in commemoration of the event. Kasavubu's mother died 4 years after his birth, and his father died in 1936. On January 31, 1925 he was baptized under the Christian name of Joseph at the Scotist Catholic mission of Kizu, near Chila. In 1927 Kasavubu enrolled in primary school at the third-year level. The following year he transferred to a minor seminary in Batakila, 50 kilometers away from Chila. There he completed his primary studies and began learning Latin and humanities in preparation for instruction at major seminary. An industrious student, Kasavubu graduated second in his class in 1936 and was admitted to the Kabwe Seminary in Kasai Province. He intended to study 3 years of philosophy and 5 years of theology before becoming an ordained priest. Following the completion of the former courses in 1939 he was expelled by the bishop. Kasavubu subsequently returned to Mayombe and took up work as a bookkeeper for the Congo mission. Dissatisfied with his salary of 80 francs per month, Kasavubu passed the instructor's exam and became a 6th-grade teacher at the mission school in early 1941. However, his pay was not increased and he left the mission in open disagreement with the superior and the local bishop. In May he found a new job at Agrifor, an agricultural and logging company. With a monthly pay of 500 francs, he felt financially secure enough to marry. On October 10 Kasavubu wedded Hortense Ngoma Masonda in a Catholic ceremony at the Congo mission. They had 9 children. In June 1942 Kasavubu earned a job as a clerk in the finance department of the Belgian colonial administration in Leopoldville, the capital of the Congo. He worked there for 15 years, attaining the rank of chief clerk, the highest level of employment available to Congolese civil servants under Belgian rule. In 1956 he was in charge of accounting for all of the administration's general stores. Kasavubu began semi-clandestine political organizing work while he was still employed by colonial authorities. Following the resignation of its leader on March 21, 1954, Kasavubu was elected president of the Alliance de Bakongo, Abako. Under his leadership, the group swept the first open municipal Leopoldville elections in 1957 and he was elected mayor of the Dendale district of the city. Kasavubu quickly became known as one of the first Congolese leaders to call for independence. At first, he advocated for independence from Belgium on a 30-year timeline, but he shortened the timetable as the Abako movement gained in strength. In his inauguration speech as mayor of Dendale, Kasavubu reiterated his demand for independence, drawing a reprimand from Belgian colonial authorities, which only strengthened his image as a Congolese leader. On January 4, 1959, an Abako political gathering organized by Kasavubu erupted into violence, sparking the Leopoldville riots, a pivotal moment in the Congolese struggle for independence. Kasavubu was set to address the crowd on African nationalism, but colonial authorities banned the meeting. They were unable to calm the crowd and thousands of Congolese began rioting. Kasavubu was arrested, along with several other leaders, and imprisoned for inciting the riot. He was released 2 months later. Upon Congo's independence from Belgium, the Abako won a significant number of votes in the new parliament but not an outright victory. In a political compromise, it was agreed that Patrice Lumumba, of the movement National Congolese, MNC, would be prime minister, and Kasavubu would face Jean Bolikango, a former mentor in the Abako, for the presidency. The election of Kasavubu brought about wide-ranging acceptance of the Congo's new administration. The Belgian press reacted positively to the development, while the Leopoldville's daily newspaper Courrier d'Afrique, edited by a Congo, showed much warmer approval of the government. International opinion expressed satisfaction at the striking of a proper balance in leadership. Belgian politicians hoped that Kasavubu would check Lumumba's impulses and personal disdain for Belgium. He was officially sworn in as president on June 27. The new republic was immediately disrupted by political and military strife and regional secessionist movements, and the central government was paralyzed by conflict between the conservative Kasavubu and leftist Prime Minister Lumumba. While Lumumba advocated for a stronger central government, Kasavubu preferred a more decentralized form of government that gave autonomous powers to provinces under a federal system. Kasavubu was regarded as rather mysterious in his motivations and his actions, frequently preferring to stay silent or give ambiguous answers when he was confronted. His role as head of state was theoretically ceremonial and far less influential than Lumumba's role as prime minister. During the immediate upheaval following independence, Kasavubu took few steps and made few definitive statements, even as Lumumba appealed for international assistance to the Americans, the United Nations and the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Kasavubu faced criticism from Abako and President Fulbert Yalu of Congo-Brazzaville for not curbing Lumumba's authoritarian actions. He resisted their pressure, and on August 13 he broadcast an appeal for unity and support for the government. Nevertheless, he cautioned the government against arbitrariness and excess. If I am under a moral obligation to support and defend the government within the limits set by the law, the members of the government themselves have a duty to work together as a team. Their policy must be the policy of the government and not that of one party, one race, or one tribe. It must be a policy which reflects the interests of the nation and which allows humanitarian values to flourish in freedom. This imperative excludes all feelings of hatred, suspicion, and bad faith towards those who have collaborated loyally with us. It is also the duty of the government to respect the institutions which have been set up and to abide by the normal rules of democratic practice. On September 5, Kasavubu dissolved Lumumba's government, which he accused of communist sympathies. Lumumba refused to accept his dismissal and announced Kasavubu's dismissal 14, creating a stalemate that endured until September 14, when Army Commander Joseph Désiré Mobutu seized power and arrested Lumumba. Lumumba was later handed to Mayombe's secessionist state in Katanga and was murdered under an alleged association of Mobutu, Kasavubu, Mayombe, and the Western powers, who had interests in the natural resources in Congo. Over the next 5 years, Kasavubu presided over a succession of weak governments. After the end of the secession of Katanga, Kasavubu appointed Mayombe as prime minister in July 1964 with a mandate to end the emerging Simba rebellion. Tshombe recalled the exiled Katangese gendarmerie and recruited white mercenaries, integrating them with the Armée Nationale Congolaise, ANC. Many of the mercenaries had fought for Katanga while Tshombe was the leader of that breakaway province. Despite the successes against the Simba rebels, Tshombe's prestige was damaged by his use of white mercenaries and Western forces. He lost the support of Kasavubu, who dismissed him from the post of prime minister, in October 1965. Mobutu seized power for a second time on November 25, 1965, now deposing Kasavubu and subsequently declaring himself head of state. Mobutu placed Kasavubu under house arrest before eventually allowing the deposed president to retire to his farm in Mayombe. Kasavubu died in a hospital in Boma 4 years later in 1969, possibly after a long illness. Kasavubu's family went into exile following his death, first to Algeria and then Switzerland. One of his daughters, Justine Mpoyo Kasavubu, eventually returned to the Congo, then called Zaire, in the 1990s. In 1997, she was appointed a cabinet minister by Laurent Kabila and then ambassador to Belgium. A bust of Kasavubu's visage was erected on his tomb in September 2002 at the urging of his supporters. Kasavubu's role in Congolese history has been overshadowed in literature by Lumumba and Mobutu. Anthropologist Yolanda Covington Ward wrote that, contrary to Lumumba's privileged position in historiography on Congolese nationalism, Kasavubu and Abako were the primary driving force behind the independence movement. Honors. Grand Cordon of the Order of Leopold, by King Baudouin, June 30, 1960. Instituted and recognized as National Hero of the Democratic Republic of Congo on June 30, 2020. Grand Cordon of the Order of the National Heroes Kabila Lumumba, by Felix Tshisekedi, October 3, 2020. In popular culture. In the 2000 film Lumumba, Kasavubu was played by Makakato. Thank you for watching this video.